Hey everyone, it's Triple Mango Threat, and today we're going over the unique monocolored commanders. Let's jump right into it. Starting with white, we have Darien, King of Keldor. Darien wants us to be dealt damage because if we do, we'll make that many 1/1 soldier tokens. So besides our opponent stealing us damage, we have Angel's Trumpet. This is going to give all creatures vigilance, and at the beginning of each player's end step, we're going to tap all untapped creatures that player's controller didn't attack with this turn. Angel's Trumpet's going to deal damage to that player equal to the number of creatures tapped this way, so if we don't attack with some of our creatures, we can make even more. Ankh of Mishra. Whenever a land enters the battlefield, it's going to deal 2 damage to the land's controller. So when we play a land, we're going to make 2 1/1 soldiers. Anointed Procession. This is going to get us twice as many tokens, so 1 damage can get us 2 1/1 soldiers from our commander. Cathar's Crusade. We are making a lot of creatures enter the battlefield, so we're going to make our creatures really big with this one. Mentor of the Meek. This gets us a ton of card draw just for 1 mana each time a power 2 or less creature enters our battlefield, which is very likely with our commander. Skull Clamp. We can equip this to one of our 1/1 soldiers, and we're going to draw 2 cards when it dies. This is probably the best card draw in any token deck. And how we get ahead in the game is with the insane amount of life gain. We have Soul Warden and Soul's Attendant. When a creature enters the battlefield, we're going to gain 1 life. This includes our opponent's creatures as well. But most importantly, whenever we're dealt damage, and we have our commander on the battlefield, we gain that much life when we make the tokens from our commander. So being dealt damage doesn't bother us anymore. God Eternal Oketra. Whenever we cast a creature spell, we're going to make a 4/4 black zombie warrior creature token with vigilance. So we'll have cards like Core Skyfisher and White Mane Lion. These enter the battlefield, then they're going to have us return a permanent or more specifically a creature back to our hand. This is not a setback for us. In fact, it's really how the deck wants to perform. When we cast White Mane Lion, we can return it back to our hand when it ETBs. This will trigger our commander and make us a 4/4 zombie for 2 mana. And it's repeatable. Oketra's Monument is helpful in the deck by reducing our creature spells by 1 colorless mana. And whenever we cast a creature spell, we get a 1/1 white warrior creature token. So reducing the mana and making more tokens is super sweet. Mentor of the Meek. It's mentioned here again because of those small creatures entering our battlefield over and over again. Idol of Oblivion. This is easy card draw as long as we can make a token. Anointed Procession doubles our tokens, and we also have Umbilicus that affects each player at the upkeep. If they do not return a permanent to their hand, they have to pay 2 life. This is helpful for us in case we don't have other creatures that we can return back to our hand. Wall of Omens. This is a good example of that. When it ETBs, it doesn't give us an option to put it back into our hand. Well, cards like Jeskai Barricade can help us do that. It specifically wants another creature to return to our hand, so this works out great. Patron of the Moon. It has Moonfolk Offering, which helps us reduce the cost of our commander, and it's a flyer, and we can pay 1 mana to put 2 lands from our hand onto the battlefield, tapped. We can immediately fix that entering tapped part with Amulet of Vigor. If a permanent enters our battlefield tapped, we untap it. So for 1 mana, we now have 2 lands that enter untapped. As for the Moonfolk we can run, we have Moloku, the Clouded Mirror, Soratami Rainshaper, Soratami Savant. Not only do they help us potentially reduce the cost of our commander, but they promote putting lands back into our hand. Ruin Crab and Royal Elemental. These will help us take advantage of our lands entering the battlefield over and over. Walking Atlas also helps us put more lands into play just by tapping it. Overburden is a mean enchantment, so whenever a player puts a non-token creature onto the battlefield, that player returns a land they control to its owner's hand. This doesn't hurt us at all as long as we have our commander, and ways we abuse this is to put lands back onto our battlefield for 1 mana with our commander. As for our opponents, this will hurt. Mana Breach. Same thing as Overburden, except now it's whenever they cast a spell. Even if their spell gets countered, they still have to return a land back to their hand. Gush. Normally this is a setback for most, while we can take advantage of it. We can return 2 islands to our hand instead of paying the 4 and a blue. Then we draw 2 cards. Well, for 1 mana, we put those lands right back onto the battlefield with our commander. Unesh Cryosphinx Sovereign. It reduces the cost of our sphinxes by 2 mana and gives us a mini factor fiction each time a sphinx enters our battlefield. So besides adding every single sphinx you can think of, I recommend Universal Automaton. We can cast it for 0 with our commander, and we get to do our factor fiction, which is 4 cards instead of the 5, but for 0 mana, it doesn't get better than that. You could toss in a Sapphire Medallion to reduce the cost of all your blue spells, and now your sphinxes cost 3 less with our commander as well. High Tide is very good in all blue decks. Doubling our islands can get silly in a deck like this. Windreader Sphinx is going to get us a lot of card draw. Warden of Evos Isle can reduce another mana because all of our sphinxes are going to fly, and Sphinx of Uthun is a factor fiction when it enters the battlefield. Gonti, Lord of Luxury. He's going to let us look at the opponent's top 4 cards cards of their library, we can exile one card and later cast it, so ETBs are very important to us. Conjurer's Closet is probably the most consistent of the ones I'll mention. At our end step we get to exile Gonti, make him ETB, and do this on our turn every time. Helm of the Host, at the beginning of combat on our turn, will make a copy of Gonti if it's equipped to him, so the copy will ETB and get us another exiled card. Blade of Selves, it gives Gonti Myriad, so when he attacks we'll make a copy for each other opponent we're not attacking. So if we have 3 opponents, we're going to make 2 copies of Gonti. We'll get 2 triggers, and they will be sacrificed immediately after because they are legendary. So you get the idea, ETBs should be happening a lot. But we need mana to be able to cast all these spells we're exiling, so we have Nyxos Shrine of Nyx and Cabal Stronghold. With all the mana we could possibly want, this will help us cast whatever we want. Chainer Dementia Master. For 3 black and 3 life, we can get any creature from any graveyard onto our battlefield. But when our commander leaves play, we have to remove those creatures. So we can fill our graveyard with Altar of Dementia. We can sacrifice creatures and mill a player by the creature's power, so we could choose us or even an opponent. Animate Dead grabs any creature as well for 2 mana. Viscera Seer is another great sack outlet that can help us put creatures back into our grave for a lot of great reasons. Blood Artist, whenever it or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and we gain 1 life. Buried Alive will help us get the 3 creatures we want from our library into our graveyard. Same with Entomb, but it's an instant and it's only 1 card. Villas, Broker of Blood. Since we're losing a lot of life from our commander, Villas is a great way to draw cards. When we lose life, we draw that many cards, so 3 cards from our commander whenever we use his ability. The last card I want to mention is Grey Merchant of Asphodel. This is one of the win cons you can have in the deck. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is our devotion to black. So the 4 cards for this combo is Altar of Dementia, Chainer, Grey Merchant, and Crick, Son of Yawgmoth. Whenever Grey Merchant is in our grave, we can bring it back with our commander's ability. We don't have to pay the 3 black mana, instead we can use Crick's ability of paying 2 life for the black mana. So that's 9 life to bring back Grey Merchant. So when Grey Merchant enters, each opponent loses 7 and we lose 2 life. We then sacrifice Grey Merchant to Altar of Dementia or whatever sack outlet, and we get him back with our commander over and over. Muxus Goblin Grandee. When Muxus enters the battlefield, we're going to look at the top 6 cards of our library. We're going to get all goblins with 5 CMC or less onto the battlefield. Muxus also gets +1/+1 when it attacks for each other goblin we control. So some great goblins to grab from Muxus are Beetleback Chief, Goblin Instigator, Mogwar Marshal, and Siege Gang Commander. All of these get us more goblins when they ETB, which is really nice for just paying the 6 mana for our commander. And again, we have Conjurer's Closet, Erratic Portal, Helm of the Host, and Panharmonicon. These will get us more ETBs from our commander, so more goblins for us to get for free as well. Conjurer's Closet happens at our end step. Helm of the Host is similar, but at our combat step, it's going to get us a non-legendary copy of Muxus. Next we have Skirk Prospector. With all the goblins in the world, we can get a huge amount of mana from this goblin, Goblin Matron. This gets us any goblin to our hand, which could be Krenko Mob Boss. Such an amazing goblin, we make an absurd amount of tokens with him and easily overwhelm our opponent. Zada Hedren Grinder. Such a unique commander in the sense that whenever we target our commander with an instant or sorcery, we're going to copy that spell for each other creature we control. Some of the silly instants and sorceries to target our commander with is Expedite, Renegade Tactics, and Stun, which is neat because we draw a huge amount of cards and it's in red. Dragon Fodder and Empty the Warrens. Remember, the copies of instants and sorceries are dependent on how many creatures we have, so making more creatures is very good for the deck. Gutter Snipe and Young Pyromancer. Instants and sorceries now get us 2 damage to each opponent and 1/1 elemental creature tokens. Stormkiln Artist gets us a treasure token, which is nice because it's for whenever we cast or copy. Keyword is copy, because when we copy our instants and sorceries from our commander, we're going to have so much mana we won't even know what to do with it. And we win the game with cards like Fist of Flame. We draw a card, and until the end of turn, target creature gains trample and gets +1/+0 for each card we've drawn this turn, which, as you've seen before, is very easy for us to draw cards for 1 or 2 mana. Ruxa Patient Professor. Whenever Ruxa enters the battlefield or attacks, we can return target creature with no abilities from our graveyard to our hand. Creatures we control with no abilities get +1/+1, and we can have creatures we control with no abilities assign their combat damage as though they were not blocked. So creatures with no abilities really matter in this deck. Ancient Brontodon, Gigantosaurus, Leatherback Baloth. These are the kinds of creatures we're needing to get +1/+1, and we can just attack and not have them blocked. Imagine a 10/10 coming at an opponent, and they can't block it. Only removal spells can stop us now. Tendershoot Dryad, Avenger of Zendikar. Now these creatures do have abilities, but the creatures they make are ones with no abilities, so lots of potential damage from these. We draw cards from Soul of the Harvest, Keeper of Fables, and Toski, Bearer of Secrets. Whenever we cast a creature, we'll draw a card. Whenever we attack an opponent, which they won't be able to block anyways, we'll draw a card. Whenever we deal combat damage, we'll draw a card. And again, yes, these have abilities, but there needs to be a way we are constantly getting our creatures with no abilities. Muruganda Petroglyphs. This is promoting creatures with no abilities by giving them +2/+2, but this also means for our opponents as well. Titania Protector of Argoth. We want lands from our battlefield to the graveyard, and we're going to make 5/3 elementals when we do. Sylvan Safekeeper is a great option to sack lands. It even gives one of our creatures Shroud. Zurin Orb is going to let us sacrifice a land, and we're going to gain 2 life. Constant Miss is a neat one that lets us cast it for 2, the buyback is sacking a land, and then creatures deal no combat damage. With all of the lands in our graveyard, Crucible of Worlds and Raminamp Excavator are perfect for playing lands from our graveyard. Roiling Regrowth, it's a ramp spell that lets us sack a land. We're going to get 2 basics, and this can make a 5/3 elemental with our commander. Elemental Bond and Garruk's Uprising get us really good card draw in the deck. We have creatures with at least power 3 or 4 entering our battlefield over and over. Thank you all so much for watching. If you'd like any of these cards, you can use the TCG link down below to help out the channel when you purchase your cards. It doesn't cost you any extra, and it lets TCG know that I sent you there. Thank you to the patrons of the show, and if you'd like to become a patron, for $10 a month you can see your name at the end of these videos and get an exclusive altar sleeve each month. Be sure to comment down below your favorite commander from this list, and subscribe for more Mango content. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.